you're welcome. If you're an independent, if you're a Democrat, we're glad that you're here. If you're an Abbott supporter, we welcome the exchange and the discussion. And as you can tell, we brought 2 microphones, and we want to make sure that we get as many people into the conversation as possible, even if, and maybe especially when, we don't see eye to eye and we come to different conclusions on the same issue. My theory is the only way that we're going to do better as a country, the only way that we're going to do better as a state, is if we can find some common ground. If we can look for those things that we can agree on, even when there are other things that we differ on. I want to make sure that we're able to move forward. I see a hand up, and I just want to say, let me do this. I'm just going to make some opening comments, and then I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. Cerrito said that we were courageous to be here today. I don't necessarily feel that way. This is my job. If I'm asking to serve you, if I want to earn your vote and have your support in this election, I better show up first and listen to you and learn from you and find out how we're going to be able to work together. If I want to be able to deliver for you as the next governor of the state of Texas and hit the ground running in January of 2023, it sure helps to listen to the people that I want to serve in the first place. So I want to thank you all for coming out here today, and for anyone who's got to put up with anything from anyone else who isn't so civil or polite. That seems to be the moment that we're in this country. And I think the only way to overcome that is literally to come together in the way we are right now. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate that. Thank you. You know, part of the reason I wonder that we've got so many folks outside is, to the best of our ability, we're unable to determine whether the sitting governor's held a town hall meeting in this community to take your questions.
Are you going to answer our questions?
Yes. I am. Absolutely. Give me like 10 minutes. Is that cool? Okay. If that works for you, I can do it in 9. I can do it in 8. So yeah, I want to make sure, and we'll make sure that you have a chance to ask a question.
How long will this town hall be?
The town hall, probably maybe an hour altogether. Yeah. Okay, so in the interest of finding some common ground here, let me talk about some of the things I would love to do with you, for you, and by you as governor in the state of Texas. I don't know if you want to grab that last window. There we go. So here's just one idea. We were doing some research on Kimball County, and we found that the school teacher on average in this county and in Junction, Texas, is underpaid by $18,000 a year against the average pay nationally. $18,000 down just to get to even. Chances are, if you're an educator, if you're a librarian, if you're a classroom teacher, if you're a counselor, if you're a school bus driver, if you're a cafeteria worker, you're not working one job in this community. You're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs to make ends meet. If you're a retired educator, you have not seen a cost of living adjustment for your income since the year of our Lord, 2004. Meanwhile, prices for everything that you purchase have gone up. Your property taxes have gone up. Your utility bills have gone up. We've seen 9% inflation just in this past year. Everything is going up, except for the revenue that you depend on. Chances are in your retirement, you're also working a job or 2 or 3 to make ends meet. Here are some ideas after listening to educators, Republicans, Democrats alike, folks who support me, folks who will vote for Greg Abbott in this next election, that makes sense to me. 1, let's pay educators in Texas enough so they don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs. They just work 1 in order to make ends meet. Let's make sure there's a cost of living adjustment every single year for those retired educators so they can enjoy their retirement. They've already given the best years of their lives to the people of Texas. Let's make sure that we give back to them. Let's listen to those who are in the classroom right now and say, after 2 years of pandemic and learning loss, we really need time to focus on these kids. Let's cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas and replace it with something that actually works and is effective in what we're trying to do. Let's, in other words, treat those educators with the dignity and the respect that they deserve by showing up here, finding out how underpaid these educators are, about to listen to you in T-minus 8 minutes. I'm going to have a better opportunity to deliver for those who are delivering the most important thing for all of us, and that's the future in this great state of Texas. Literally, our kids who are in their care, we want to make sure that they can come through for us, and I want to make sure that I can come through for them. Second group of people that I want to make sure that we all find some common ground to support, and those are the veterans who put their lives on the line for the United States of America. They were willing to lose those lives in order to defend this democracy, to fight fascism half a world away as far back as World War II. And they swore an oath not to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or even the President of the United States, but to our Constitution, to our democracy, to our very way of life. And in this great state, the greatest in the greatest country on the planet, I want to make sure that we do our part for each and every single one of them. Right now in this great state with a $2 trillion GDP, tonight there will be veterans who will be sleeping on the side of the road or underneath bridges or on benches in parks in our communities. Let us agree that we'll spare no expense. We'll do whatever it takes to connect those veterans with housing, to make sure that they have the care that they need, that they've earned, that they deserve, that allows them to live their best possible life and contribute again in civilian life as veterans, just as they did in uniform. Let's listen to them also when they say, hey, Beto, we're going to need some help when we can't get an appointment at the VA, when it's just too far to drive or the wait list is far too long for us. Why doesn't Texas step up and connect more veterans with care within the community, whether it's at our local county hospitals, whether it's specialists, either here or in San Antonio or Austin or wherever we can find the closest one. And then when that veteran comes back and says, you know what, for my PTSD, for my traumatic brain injury, I am prescribed an opioid to which I may become addicted and from which I may die, as tens of thousands of our fellow Americans have. But the thing that makes me able to sleep, restores my appetite, addresses my symptoms is marijuana. But if I use that in the state of Texas, I'm a criminal in the eyes of the law. We spend $500 million a year locking up people for possession of a substance that's already legal in most of the rest of the country right now. When we talk about veterans serving time after they've already served us in uniform, I say, let's legalize cannabis in the state of Texas and expunge the arrest records for anyone who served time for cannabis in the state of Texas. I think this is a bipartisan idea. Secret that I've learned by listening to people is it turns out Republicans, Democrats, independents alike use marijuana at roughly the same rate in this state. They just want to make sure that they can do so in a legal way. Controlling and regulating the sale of that substance saves us $500 million going out. It brings another $500 million coming in when we tax it as other states have done that. Use that to reduce your property taxes or invest in public education. Or how about this idea? Right now, we're 51st in the nation in the ability to see a mental health care provider. There is no full-time psychiatrist in this county right now. We also, when we look at other forms of healthcare, we don't have a full-time OBGYN in this community. You have to drive, I think, 60, 70 miles to find the closest one. There's this program you all are aware of because we invented it here in Texas called Medicaid. And if we would take yes for an answer and expand Medicaid in Texas, which means, check this deal out. It's too good to be true, but it is. Washington, D.C. will send us back our own money that we paid up in federal income taxes. They'll send back every single year $10 billion to the state of Texas for us to use in communities like Junction to connect more people with care, to address the fact that our largest provider of mental health care services today throughout the state of Texas is the county jail system. The largest inpatient facility in this great state of 30 million people is the Harris County Jail in downtown Houston, Texas. By taking that $10 billion of our own money back, making sure that we connect more people with care, we're going to see better outcomes, It will be less expensive than posting someone up in the county jail at the cost of $120 a night. People are going to better be able to raise their families, work their jobs, start a small business, finish their education, take a job with law enforcement, serve us in the United States military, whatever they want to be able to do. We just want to make sure that they're well enough and healthy enough to be able to do it. And the last thing on this, and the kicker, is that if we expand Medicaid, which I commit to you we will do when we win this election, not only do we bring that money in, we can reduce your property taxes in the bargain. Because, hear me out on this, if you are diabetic but are uninsured, don't qualify for Medicaid today in the state of Texas, can't afford insulin, your out-of-pocket cost might be in the high hundreds or over $1,000 a month to be able to purchase a substance that was invented 102 years ago and costs nothing to produce. Now, if you don't have insulin, at some point you are going to get so sick that you'll take yourself to the local hospital. The outcomes are going to be far worse than they would have been otherwise. The care will be exponentially more expensive. And even if you don't have a dime to your name or an insurance card in your wallet or purse, that bill will not go away. It just gets picked up by the local county taxpayer to cover indigent care that's uncompensated right now in the state of Texas. So if we can make people healthier, if we can stand up some of these closed rural clinics across the state of Texas, if we can reduce your property taxes, why in the world would we not do that? Last big idea that I want to leave you with, and then I promise you we're going to get folks' questions and comments and ideas into the conversation. And that is this. I want to make sure that wherever you live in Texas, you have an opportunity to succeed. Especially if you're a young person coming up, you were born and raised in this community. Everyone in this room paid their property taxes to make sure you could get the best possible public school education. Those teachers in your classroom devoted the best years of their lives to you. I want to make sure you have every opportunity to get ahead. Just as much of an opportunity as the young person in Austin or Houston or El Paso or anywhere else across this country. Right now, fewer than a quarter of the residents in Kimball County have reliable, high-speed, broadband internet. For those who have it, they're paying far too much to get online, and the speeds that they're using are not reliable. Now, try finishing your education, finding a job, hiring somebody if you're an entrepreneur. Try finding a date if you're lonely, if you cannot get online and use the internet. Very difficult to do. Most of the rest of the country, most of the rest of the developed world today can count on that. You all know your history, and you know that in 1936, Congressman, before he was senator or president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, worked with President Franklin Delano Roosevelt on this idea called the REA. It was the Rural Electrification Administration. What it said was, look, if you live in Junction, Texas, no big utility, no corporation is going to pay to lay the lines or wire the poles to your town to ensure that you have light at night. It's just cost prohibitive. They'll never make enough profit off of it, so they won't touch you. So what we'll do, LBJ said, is we'll meet you halfway. You form a co-op here in Kimball County. You all gather the resources that you have. We at the state and federal level will do the same, and we'll lay these lines to your town. I've met people who were in the first grade in 1936 who talked about how transformative that was for them, that all of a sudden they were able to do their homework by electric light, just like the kids in Dallas or Tokyo or London or anywhere else around the world. They said, you know what? We matter. We're just as competitive and as important as anyone else. We do that with broadband internet here in the state of Texas. In a state, that's cool, we'll get you in. In a state where half of rural residents statewide cannot get online to reliable broadband internet, the economic opportunities, the job creation, the innovations that we're going to bring to market, there is no stopping us as a state. So hear me out on this. Just a quick recap. Folks outside may ask, what was this Beto guy all about? Say, you know what? He talked about world-class public schools that we get by supporting our public school educators. He talked about making sure that everyone can see a doctor and that they're healthy enough and well enough to live to their full potential. He wants the best jobs in America to be created right here in Texas, and not just in some parts of Texas, but in Kimball County, Texas as well. And he wants to make sure that we're making the investments in our communities so that we can compete for those jobs and create them in our own communities. We do that. We focus on the big things where we have agreement, where we can find consensus. despite our differences in rural, urban, Republican, Democrat, any other thing between us, then this state is going to be able to get ahead. But if we allow ourselves to be consumed by our differences, by the division, by our hatreds, and by our fears, especially at a time that we have a governor who is busy telling us who we're supposed to be afraid of next. Is it the transgender child? Is it critical race theory? Is it the United States-Mexico border? Or are we going to come together and be a strong, bold, big people, fearless in our pursuit of excellence and the solutions to the challenges that we have before us? That's the path that I want to choose. And I just want to say this to anyone in this community, or in this state for that matter, who finds themselves under attack right now. If you're a woman, for example, and for the first time since Texas women, Sarah Weddington, Linda Coffey, and Jane Roe in 1973, won protection for the right to privacy, to make very personal and painful decisions on your own without government intervention, and you find yourself in a state with a total abortion ban, with no exception for rape and no exception for incest, I just want you to know that I've got your back. I'll fight for you to make your own decisions about your own body, your own future. If you're gay, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, and you see a governor who's calling special sessions not to stop the next mass shooting in a school, but special sessions to pursue the parents of transgender kids, to make us afraid of our differences, I just want to tell you that I'm grateful that you're here in this state. We will always have your back. I want you to be able to marry the person of your choice, be just who you are over the course of your life. If you're an immigrant, as so many of us over the course of our lives or our families have been immigrants, and you have a governor who's saying we've got to take matters into our own hands. In Texas, we must defend ourselves, and is busing migrants to Washington, D.C. and New York City, involuntarily activating 10,000 members of the Guard, sending them to the border at a cost of more than $5 billion to all of us, and we've done nothing materially to change the dynamic at the border. And you're sick and tired of being used as a scapegoat to distract people or make people afraid. I just tell you this, I'm confident that Republicans and Democrats alike can come together and find the solutions to make sure that if you want to come here to work or to join family or to seek asylum or refuge, that we will ensure or work to ensure that there is a safe, legal, orderly path to do that. If you come to this country, you must follow our laws, but we must update our laws to reflect our values and our interests and our needs. And if you come to this country to do us harm, you want to traffic fentanyl, you want to traffic in human beings, then we will remain vigilant against you and stop you before you can come in. If we focus on solutions, we will be able to get that done, and we'll stop scapegoating and demonizing and vilifying our fellow Texans, as is happening in this state today. Last thing I'll say before Cynthia turns the microphone over to you, and that is, if you would like to be part of this campaign, we'd love to have you. And we've got volunteers today who will sign you up to canvass. That means knocking on the doors of voters who are going to decide the outcome of this election. You know what? Let's just be respectful of everyone. We're going to have a question and answer period, and if everyone can be respectful, we'll take the microphone to everybody. Okay? I would love for you to ask a question. I guess all I'm asking you to do is if you could stop interrupting, and then when it's question and answer time, that's okay. That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. We'll work with each other. Anyhow, we would love to have you as part of this effort. Chrissy Clayberg, who's in the door right there, Angela, who's in the back, other volunteers would gladly sign you up. This is a campaign not about a candidate, not about a political party, but about the people of Texas. And my theory is if the people of Texas show up for one another, knock on each other's doors, meet each other where we're at, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, human to human, there's a good chance that we're going to win this, and there's a good chance that we're going to be able to get this state back on the right track. So, with that, thank you for being so patient. We're going to turn the microphone over to others. Cynthia Cano has this black hat on, this great new Beto for Texas t-shirt. She will bring the microphone to you. We just ask that folks be polite, we be civil. We don't have to agree That is okay and maybe even necessary for this democracy to work at this moment. We just want to make sure that we give everyone a chance to get in if possible. Okay, Ms. Cano,
Great,
you're
and the
in
last
charge.
thing that I'm going to add is if you could just keep it to one question so I can get to everybody in the room.
There we go.
My apologies. Is the mic on?
It is.
I don't hear it.
You're on.
It's on. I hear it. It's very on.
It's okay. It's all right.
We've heard you for an hour.
I promise you we can hear you.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to trust me on this one.
I got you over here, the
I
speaker.
don't need the mic then. Okay.
Yeah.
Pero, my apologies for interrupting you. My name is Maribel Salazar. I've never been. So my question is.
They need the mic.
We can't hear you.
I'll repeat her question. We're going to work with what we've got. So go for it.
So my question is about there's rising food costs here in our country, and there's the ecological disasters. There was, as you know, lots of fish killed in, I guess, somewhere in Europe. There was an ecological disaster which caused, these fish were killed, and it's going to take like 2 years for us to 2 years to recover from the ecological disaster. My question to you is, what is your stance on climate change, and how do we protect the earth, and at the same time, as we continue to ensure that we have a place for our children, because and I'm curious how this differentiates you from Republicans, because it seems like Democrats nowadays, they want to, basically, they believe in big government, and in the government supporting you and doing everything that they can, like providing for you. They believe in, like, overactive government.
Great. Can I take the question from there? And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure I get as many people in. Let me respond to this. On this question you have, very good question on climate change. First of all, I believe that it's happening. I listen to the scientists. I follow the science on this. More importantly than that, I listen to the people in Texas. You talk to the ranchers in this community, and they're facing unprecedented drought at the same time that they're facing these corporate conglomerates who are crushing them on the margins for what they raise and what they grow. Every single input they have, from fertilizer to feed to fuel, is going through the roof right now. In the short term, we've got to do everything we can to support them so they can keep these farms and ranches within the family, be able to pass them down to the next generation or the generation that follows that one, right? So first and foremost, let's get behind those who produce the food and the fiber that literally all of us depend on. Far too often we take them for granted. At this moment, we cannot. But on the larger issue of climate change, let's acknowledge that this is not just a function of Mother Nature or something that God has decided for all of us. There's a human input to this. Our emissions, our excesses, our inaction in the face of the science and the facts has helped to produce this series of events. But there's something we can do about that. Right now, we're the leader energy of the world. I'm so proud of those in the oil and gas industry who've made us that way, secured our independence from the rest of the world. I'm old enough to remember when this country went to war half a world away to secure our energy supply lines. Because of Texas, we no longer have to do that. I just want to make sure that we expand our lead. And that means, in addition to oil and gas, it's wind, it's solar, it's geothermal, it's hydrogen, it's these battery storage technologies that not only create more jobs, deepen our property tax base, but allow us to confront the challenge of climate before it's too late, and do it right here in the state of Texas. We have the know-how, the experience, and the expertise to make it happen. So I see the people of Texas being able to come to the rescue for the people of Texas, which is the way I like to see things. No one's riding to the rescue from outside of the state. This one is on us. Thanks for the great question. Cynthia Cano, you got another one.
Hi, I'm Deanne Allen, and I live here in Junction. Our rural communities are getting short-shafted by the sales tax revenues. On sales tax, if I order something from Walmart, if I order something from Amazon, because the way the state tax laws are, My city sales tax doesn't go to Junction. My city sales tax goes to New Braunfels, where the distribution center is. My county sales tax goes to Comal County. There needs to be a change in the sales tax law to generate revenues for the rural communities so we can benefit from the purchases that we make.
Other people said this before I did, but amen as well. We need to make sure that every community in Texas is getting their rightful share or their rightful due. Rural Texas, despite producing the food that we were just talking about, the fiber and the fuel that really the world depends on, is not getting its share of resources. I mentioned how underpaid your teachers are, $18,000 a year. You look at the Universal Service Fund, which was a successor to the REA. That's what underwrites rural telephone and internet bills. The governor, Greg Abbott, vetoed the Universal Service Fund this last legislative session. Why are your phone bills going up $50, $100 when combined with internet in this community? It's because you all aren't getting your fair share. And I think it has something to do with the fact that those in positions of power and public trust at a statewide level haven't shown up for meetings like these. They think they've got you in the bag. They don't have to fight for or earn the votes in these communities. I'm here right now knowing full well that in 2018, we got a whopping 11% of the vote in Kimball County. They call me Landslide O'Rourke here in this county right now. Maybe we'll get 12%, maybe we'll get 10% next time. I don't know, and it really ultimately doesn't matter if I'm interested in doing my job for you, which is making sure that you get your fair share. So, working with the Republican representative and state senator for this region, I want to make sure that you and I together make the case that having some fairness in sales tax, having some fairness in property tax. One of the counties that I visited, average home, ranch, and farm appraisals went up 50% last year. Walmart, one of the largest corporations on planet Earth, their appraisals in the same county declined by 6%. Now that school district, that county government, that municipal government still need the proceeds and the revenue. They just jack your rate a little bit higher to make up for what Walmart is not paying. So whether this is happening online, whether it's these big box retail stores, and we don't begrudge them their success, right? We're capitalists, we want them to be able to do well, but we want them to play by the rules that all of us play by. And so showing up in rural Texas for rural Texas is how rural Texas is going to get these results. And the law has to get changed. Absolutely. Yep. Appreciate it. Sorry, I'm going to go to Cynthia on questions.
I just have a quick comment. I attended the town hall last night in San Angelo. There were probably 500 plus people and not one heckler. And it was a wonderful crowd, and we received respect from the community. And I'm sorry to see this. I know it happens, but I retired from teaching here in Junction. I live in Menard, but I just wanted to tell y'all that there was a fabulous thing last night, and I know he's going to keep going all over Texas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being there last night, for coming again today. Listen, these folks outside, you know, they're our fellow Texans, they're our fellow Americans, they're our fellow human beings. I want to deliver for them as well. They may be a little excited because their candidate never shows up here, and so this is the one chance they get to get to see a statewide candidate. Just happens to be a guy who's on the other side of the aisle. So thank you for showing up. Ms. Cano.
Hello, Beto, and thank you for coming to Junction. I have one question regarding what happened in Uvalde. Too many deaths. We pretty much live like down the road. What is your view, your opinion in regards to teachers who are already severely underpaid, also being security guards? I'm all about, gun ownership and so forth regarding responsible gun ownership. But I, for one, do not support teachers being armed.
Thanks for asking the question. There's a reason that we're seeing teachers leave the profession by the thousands across the state of Texas right now. Underpaid, the STAR test, the lack of respect, and now this very serious thought that you must have in your head of what am I going to do if I face an armed gunman in my school? And I've heard teachers tell me, that their kids will ask them, "Hey, Mom, are you going to sacrifice your life like those teachers did in Uvalde for those kids, Or are you going to try to get out of that school to make sure that you come home for us? We shouldn't have to ask ourselves this, right? Our kids, Amy and I just sent our 3 kids back to school in El Paso. Our school year started 2 weeks ago, sophomore, freshman, 6th grade year. And look, they're smart, just like your kids are smart. They see that 12 weeks after Uvalde, we have not done a thing to make it any less likely that they'll experience the same fate. So what can we do? I would listen to you, and I'd listen to the parents in the room, and I'd listen to the kids who go to these schools, and to the administrators in these school districts. You all know your campuses better than I ever will. You come to me and say, hey, Beto, we need better perimeter fencing. These doors haven't been fixed in a decade. Whatever it is from a school safety facility perspective, we got you. On mental health, which the governor's brought up, he keeps saying this is a mental health care issue. Again, he's been in office for 7 years. We're 51st in the nation in mental health care access. The month before Uvalde, he took $211 million out of the state's mental health care budget to deploy it for these stunts on the border. So if you want to get serious about mental health, I'll be there with you. We'll expand Medicaid. I won't be happy till we're first and not 51st. But if we do all that and fail to acknowledge that more than 12 weeks ago, an 18-year-old young man, recently a boy, was able to go into a gun shop and buy 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and use that weapon that was formerly used in combat because it is devastatingly effective at taking an enemy soldier down at a distance and forcing him or her to bleed out before they can ever be revived. That he could do that. That he could signal so strongly that there were problems in his life that his friends called him the school shooter before he ever walked into the school and shot anybody. That those set of circumstances exist today in Texas, and we have not changed a thing. That's on all of us. It's not on one person in one office or one political party. It's on us. And for me, that's what this election is about. Here are some things I've heard as I've listened to people, gun owners, non-gun owners, law enforcement, parents, kids across the state of Texas. One, what if we raised the minimum age of purchase for an AR-15 from 18 to 21? That young man did not try to purchase that weapon or acquire it when he was 16 or 17. And Cynthia, we may have a question in the back after I finish mine. He's been polite. And okay, we'll come here and then we'll come back to you. Because some will say, look, Beto, criminals don't follow the law. You can set all the laws that you want. They'll get their hands on it anyhow. This guy was following the law. Raise the age to 21, we would have purchased 3 more years for some kind of intervention. Couple that with the red flag law that says, look, if you already have the gun and you're threatening to shoot people in school, the way that this young man was probably doing because his friends called him the school shooter, then we can intervene before it's too late, using due process and returning that firearm to its rightful owner once all legitimate concerns have been addressed. Add one more piece to that, and that is a universal background check. If you buy a firearm from a federally licensed gun dealer, you're going to go through a background check in the state of Texas. That's wonderful. But if that federally licensed gun dealer rejects your purchase because you didn't pass a background check, you are welcome in this state to go to a private seller and purchase that same firearm from them. That's what happened in Midland, Odessa in 2019. 8 people lost their lives as a consequence. I'm just confident that we as Texans who have a long, proud tradition of responsible gun ownership can continue to defend the Second Amendment, which is so important, while doing a better job of protecting the lives of those in our community, and especially these kids and school teachers in our schools. So those 3 things: investing in school security, ensuring that we have much better mental health care resources and access in the state of Texas, and then responsible, common sense gun laws. That's going to do a world of good, to make a world of difference, to make sure that we don't have to worry about this stuff going forward. We can focus on whether we got the homework in on time or whether we're going to pass that algebra test at the end of the day today. That's what I want to make sure my kids and you are able to focus on in the classroom. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to try to make our way around to as many people as possible. Thank you for having your hands up politely.
You said you would spare no expense. We will. And taking care of veterans. And, well, a few days ago, we had like 2,000 illegal immigrants cross the border right down the road. And we will provide health care, education, housing for those but yet our veterans are hurting. So I'm wondering, and all of us middle class people are hurting, just trying to go to the grocery store and buy our normal stuff. So where is this money going to come from to take care of the veterans and increase teacher pay and all that? I mean, we're already spent. So what are we going to do?
Thanks for this question. I agree that what we have at the border today is chaos. I agree with you that people are not following the law. They're not coming here in an orderly way. It's not good for them, and it's not good for us. More than 50 migrants dying in the back of a trailer. That should signal to every single person in this room we have a huge problem in this country. And it's a problem of our making collectively. When Democrats have been in power, they have failed to act. When Republicans have been in power, they have failed to act. Ronald Reagan was the last president of the United States of America who presided over comprehensive immigration reform. It has literally been that long. This one is on all of us. I'll just say that our current governor has been in this office for 7 years so far. The things that he's done, whether well-intentioned or not, are clearly not working. Maybe we can bus enough migrants to New York City or Washington, D.C. to make a difference. I think the jury's out on this one. I've already come to my conclusion. What I think we need are solutions. Look, if you want to come here and you want to work on one of these ranches, if you want to work on one of these farms, if you want to work in one of these cotton gins, if you want to work in a high-tech company in Austin, Texas for that matter, I want to make sure that you do so legally. It's the only way you should come into this country. On our end, I want to make sure we update and upgrade our laws so there's a safe, legal, orderly path for you to be able to do that. For the employers in the room, try sponsoring an immigrant visa, connecting with that person and bringing them across. The hoops through which you have to jump, the bureaucracy that you have to navigate, the money that you have to lay out, it's no wonder, although it doesn't justify it, and I do not condone it, I don't want anyone to do it, but it's no wonder that people break the law in order to connect with employment opportunities here. Same with joining family. Same for those seeking asylum. When your wait time right now for the adjudication of your asylum claim in America is 6 years. Do you want to stay 6 years with your 6-year-old kid in a refugee camp in Ciudad Juarez, hoping that your number is going to be called at some point? Or are you going to jump the line and come here? I don't condone it. Nothing justifies breaking the law. I understand why people do that. If we could just come together, Republicans and Democrats alike, and craft a Texas-based response, a solution to this challenge, then everyone coming for work who wants to do so legitimately and legally, everyone who wants to join their family, who wants to follow the law, everyone who wants to claim asylum, and we adjudicate the request, and if you pass it, welcome to America, and if you don't, some Democrats don't want to hear this, you're going back to your country of origin, no ifs, ands, or buts. We got to follow the law. We're a nation of laws. It's what sets us apart from the rest of the world. But if we do that, we clear everybody off the table except for those who want to do us harm. If you're trafficking fentanyl or human beings right now, you are a needle in that gigantic haystack of people who are seeking economic opportunity or trying to be with their families or pursuing refuge in this country. We take care of them, we're going to have security here. The second question you asked, how in the world, Beto, are we going to pay for this? We do not lack for resources in this state. It's the 9th largest economy on planet Earth. It's a $2 trillion gross domestic product. The legislature and the governor pass and sign a $250 billion, $250 billion biannual budget. It's a matter of our priorities, where we want to spend. I can think of few people who are more important to us than those classroom teachers and those counselors and those librarians and the folks who take care of our kids day in, day out. The members of law enforcement who keep us safe in our communities. Those CPS caseworkers who are overseeing 32,000 kids in their custody and care right now. We prioritize those young people who are coming up. Those public servants who put their lives on the line. We're going to be a stronger and a safer state. And if we need more revenue, what if that Walmart that I was talking about was paying their fair share of property taxes just like you are right now? What if in making marijuana legal in the state of Texas, we brought in an additional $1 billion a year to the positive? What if we could use those resources to address your rising property taxes and bring them down? Add another $10 billion of our own money coming back to us through Medicaid expansion. We have the resources. We just thus far have lacked the leadership that will put them in the right place. Thanks for these great
Okay, we have
questions.
time for 4 more.
Okay, have time for 4 more. We're going to try to get to as many of these as we can.
Thank you so much for coming to town.
Of course.
That really means a lot. And besides the marijuana, the money could come in. Also, legal gambling. We're losing a lot of money to that. And that was my question.
Yeah. You know, some will say, hey, Beto, we don't want gambling in the state of Texas. The thing is, there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Texans who are gambling right now in Oklahoma, in Louisiana. Everything that they spend goes to the benefit of those states and does not stay here. The economic benefit and what we get to pay for things that are priorities for us in this state is to the tune of 2 to 3, maybe more than that, $2 to $3 billion, maybe more than that a year. Now, this is an issue that I want to make sure I listen to my fellow Texans on, but if we're trying to prevent people from gambling, we've already failed in that. It is happening everywhere around us right now. Might be time that we get smart about this and ensure that we enjoy the benefit of it as well. Thanks for asking this question. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Don. The Texas Senate and the Texas House are both controlled by Republican members. What can a Democrat governor do to advance the agendas that you were wanting to do?
Thanks for this great question. And I started out with the big things that I hope that we can achieve. World-class schools, great jobs by investing in infrastructure, making sure that we expand Medicaid so everyone's healthy and well enough to live to their full potential. Those happen to be the most important things that I hear from people across the state. I also think they're the most achievable, even within divided government. So Medicaid expansion, bringing that $10 billion back. Lest anybody think that this is a Democratic Party ploy. Our border states, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, have all expanded Medicaid, 3 of them under Republican governors. There's bipartisan consensus on this. We just need leadership that'll bring people to the table. Paying teachers more. The most underpaid teachers in the state of Texas happen to be represented by Republicans right now. Do I think that Republicans don't like public school teachers or want them to be underpaid? Absolutely not. My opening assumption is that Republicans care just as much as Democrats do about making sure that the people that they represent and serve are treated with dignity and respect. When I come to the table with the representative here and I say, hey, your constituents are getting the shaft right now in the state of Texas, I want to up the percentage that the state pays to cover public ed and decrease the amount that the local property taxpayer has to do it. So whether you're in Kimball County or El Paso County, you're not on the hook for raising teacher pay. The state of Texas is instead. We're going to find some people who say yes. So these are bipartisan ideas that I know that we can get done. One last thing, because you may say, well, Beto, how do you know that you can bring this to pass? For 6 years, I had the good fortune to be sent to D.C. by my constituents in El Paso to serve them in Congress. And I asked for and received a spot on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. And at meetings just like these, listening to veterans and their spouses and their kids and their advocates, I learned that we had the worst performing VA in the United States of America, 148th in mental health care wait times. I made it my mission. I was going to move hell or high water to make sure that those veterans did not wait, not days, not weeks, not months. They were waiting years when I was first elected. We turned that VA around through the pressure that we applied, through working with the administration, Democrat or Republican. It did not matter to us. And then we also wrote and passed legislation in a Republican majority institution. When I wrote this bill called the Honor Our Commitment Act, to make sure that veterans who had an other than honorable discharge could get into the VA, because prior to that they were prevented from doing so. And they were taking their lives at twice the rate of the general veterans population. I worked with a Republican colleague. He says, Beto, I like the idea, this makes sense to me. He said, I think it's too generous in some areas, I want to change it in others. We got to a consensus position. I was even willing to compromise, which is a 4-letter word in American politics today, but I think it's essential to making this democracy work. We made our arguments to the 433 other members of the House of Representatives. We were on the floor of the House and we were asked, hey, isn't this going to be millions of dollars more that we have to spend at a time of deficits and debt? And we said, yes, that's true. But shouldn't we spare no expense for those who are willing to lose their lives and pay the ultimate price for us? And folks said, you know what, that checks out. Others would say, hey, Beto, these folks have an other than honorable discharge. There's got to be a consequence for their behavior while they were in uniform. We said, we agree with you there, but the consequence cannot be their lives. And we're losing them at a frightening rate. We got that bill passed 435 to 0. We got it passed in the Senate. And check this out, Donald J. Trump signed that into law. So we can find common ground where we seek it, where we're persistent, where we're willing to listen to people who may not agree with us all the time. And so I'm so grateful that everyone is here, whether you're wearing a Make America Great Again hat. The gentleman who was sitting in this seat had an Abbott sign, shook my hand when I came in, then shook my hand when he left, said, hey, I got to get back to work. I love this. He may not vote for me. In fact, chances are he will not vote for me, right? But if we win this, he's going to be my constituent. And I want to make sure that I deliver for him. And if I have an open ear to his ideas, suggestions, the opportunities that he sees, it's a better chance we're going to be able to come through. Ms.
Okay, I have
Connell.
2 more.
Hi,
Hi there.
my question is, when did they split the ballot? I mean, now in Kimber County, it's straight Democrat or straight Republican. When it came time for the sheriffs to vote on the sheriffs, if you're a Democrat, you could not vote for the sheriff. And he represents all of us. Also, how can we get it back to one ballot? Because that's the way it used to be in Texas.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Without knowing the details, I think we may be talking about the primary ballots that we had last March. Was that the election last March or this past March? Okay. Yeah, so it may be that there were, I don't know that there were no Democrats running for sheriff on the other side. And so if you want to have a voice in selecting who the nominee will be, you are forced to vote in the Republican primary. You know, maybe there should be a different system. Right now, they're still counting the votes in Alaska, where Senator Murkowski's running for re-election and Sarah Palin is running to serve as a U.S. Congresswoman. But I think they do something where the first 4, it's like an open primary. Everybody, regardless of party, you can be a Republican, Democrat, Independent, you get to vote. And I actually kind of like that idea that we don't divide based on party. And, you know, in my community, it's overwhelmingly Democratic. And someone might be at a meeting like this who's a Republican and say, you know what, I'm a Republican, I don't want to vote in the Democratic primary, and yet that's the only primary that counts in my community. So things like ranked choice voting, which is an innovation that other states have adopted, they make us perhaps a little bit less partisan and more willing to try to find people who don't see things exactly the way we do because we're dependent on their votes. It forces us to the middle instead of the primary system, which forces us to the edges. And that's what we see right now in the state of Texas. Ms. Connell?
This is going to be our last question.
Ms. Cynthia, you know what? I'm so sorry. I broke the rule.
I know you were going to make me. He was super rude outside, but you're going to. I know you, but we'll do it. We'll do it. But
Okay,
he was
I'm so
very
sorry.
rude outside.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? If you were rude to Cynthia, I'm not going to take a question for you. There's got to be some consequences. So sorry about that. This will be our last question.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. My question is about the guns.
Good questions about guns?
Yes. Okay. About the rifle, the assault weapons. Is there any way that they can just dispose of those? Why does any? They're not going to go shoot a rabbit or a deer with a gun like that. You know, they need to be gotten rid of.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for
There's
this
too
question.
many beautiful kids that just got killed.
That's right.
All those people in El Paso and New York, Midland, Odessa, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Thanks for asking this question. I've listened to a lot of people across the state of Texas. The person who I remember the most, a woman named Marcella, it was the day of the El Paso shooting. It was August 3rd, 2019. And I went to University Medical Center. It's a level 1 trauma center. It's where so many of the people who were shot were taken. And I was going in to visit with someone who'd been shot in the chest. Her mom had also been shot, and her mom's sister had also been shot. The mom and the daughter survived. The mom's sister, unfortunately, passed away. And got to visit with this woman. Wanted to check in on her, wanted to be with her son, whom I'd met in the airport. He said, please come with me, and my mom would be lifted by having a visitor, and you know, she'd love to see you. We did that. I'm coming back out, and this woman, Marcella, comes up to me, and she said, my husband has been in surgery for the last 4 or 5 hours. I think, she said, I don't know if he's alive right now. I don't know if he's dead. He was one of the coaches for the girls' soccer team. They were selling drinks outside in that Walmart parking lot to raise money for a tournament, a soccer tournament in Arizona. And those little girls watched their grandparents and parents get mowed down by a guy with an AR-15. And so Marcella says to me in the moment, she said, Beto, why does anybody need a gun like this? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't think they do. And I went home and I thought I was a candidate at the time, and I thought about it. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. Those of us who run for elected office very often will first ask ourselves, well, what will be popular? What will people like? You know, how can I win more votes? I mean, if any politician is being honest with you, if you administer some truth serum to them, that's running through their head, okay? And I'll admit that runs through my head sometimes. But haunted by Marcella and anticipating what my kids would ask me, I was able to get past the political consideration and come to the conclusion that this weapon that was originally designed for use in combat, and you listen to the people who developed it with the Armalite Corporation, it's supposed to hit an enemy soldier at 500 yards, that's 5 football fields, penetrate a steel helmet, and knock them down dead. When you're up against kids who are 10 years old at 5 feet who just have a baseball cap on their head, the term the doctor used who saw those kids afterwards is it liquefied them. And somebody pointed out earlier, their parents and that doctor were only able to identify them by the shoes on their feet. There's no legitimate hunting reason. There's no legitimate self-defense reason for having this. And just so that we all understand our history and the Constitution, and let me just say this, I put that the wrong way, so that I understand our history and the Constitution, this is what I have learned. That there's no right that's protected in that Constitution that's unlimited. You know the famous example that the First Amendment gives us the right to free speech, but we couldn't stand up in a crowded movie theater and yell fire if there were no fire, because people might trample one another and someone might die. You know, the Second Amendment is there and it has the right to bear arms, but we don't have grenade launchers or howitzers. We can't roll tanks down the street. And in 1934, after this country became sickened by seeing their fellow Americans slaughtered by fully automatic machine guns, we decided that it just didn't make sense, as you have just decided with AR-15s and AK-47s, it didn't make sense for people to own them outside of zones of war or battlefields. And though we did not outlaw fully automatic machine guns, we made it prohibitively expensive and nearly impossible for you to possess them. I challenge anyone in here to tell me the last time someone was killed or you had a school shooting with fully automatic machine guns in this country. 1934, we just said, hey, there's a line. And it just so happens that these kinds of firearms are on this side of the line and other firearms are on this side of the line. I think we're coming up to that point now with the AR-15 and AK-47. I happen to believe, as do you, there is no legitimate civilian use for these weapons of war. Keep them on the battlefield. Let's stop selling them into our communities. However, if we can't get there together, let's at a minimum raise the minimum age of purchase from 18 to 21. I think that makes it better. It's not perfect, but if we don't allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good, we'll be able to get something done. Thank you for this great question. All right, I want to thank everyone in Junction for coming out. Te agradezco. Muchísimas gracias. And thank you. We'll be back. And we're grateful to you all. Thank you.